Hey everyone, welcome to the London is Blue podcast YouTube channel. You're about to watch a clip of our Chelsea women's v Arsenal women's match review. Obviously, kind of a interesting match to talk about. So if you like the clip, head on over to listen to the full podcast, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. We appreciate it. Thank you.
The next thing, if we kind of dig into the GAFA, right, Emma, and what is probably her biggest test yet to come, but also the balance and the challenge she's had up to this point as well. I mean, she has just got an all-star lineup, like from top to bottom. Chelsea invested heavily into the squad for probably 2 years running at least, like heavily at least, right? With Sam Kerr coming in last January, Harder coming in right now, and then the players that have been built up, loopholes coming in. Always continuing to move, bring in players whenever she can. How can Emma Hayes find the right lineup with so much talent in the squad? Every manager says, and she said it too, it's the best problem to have. I love, tough decisions. But when you can't get the tough decisions right more times than not, it becomes a talking point. So the defense is relatively settled, I'd say. Maybe now you have to question Berger a little bit and maybe get Carly Telford in some more minutes than maybe she was before. I don't know. Sam Kerr and Bethany England aren't exactly firing on all cylinders, and Bethany England won awards last season, banged in the goals, had no problem scoring, right? So this is a little uncharacteristic. Sam Kerr, you signed her because she was known as the number one striker in the world, 35 goals in 42 matches in America, like has done it on the national level, the international level, like has had no problem scoring goals. Maybe still adjusting to England. We'll figure it out. Super Fran is injured today, but she has been playing well, creating a lot down the right flank, which is a new position for her. So again, there's a lot of different things, Nick, in here when it comes to a recipe for success. I think the biggest thing is, from that midfield to attack and going forward. I know Dan did mention earlier, kudos to the team. We have scored 19 goals in 6 matches, so we're averaging over 3 goals a match. Was it just today because it was a tougher team, or are there bigger concerns looking ahead?
I mean, I look at the midfield as kind of the thing you have to sort first, because to me, when you have a player like Sam Kerr, even though she hasn't been at her like peak best, you're still confident that she's going to bang in more than she'll miss, right? Like that's the hope anyway. So when I look at the midfield and I see Ingle and I see Loopholes, both who are kind of interchangeable, though Loopholes is more of a box to box and Ingle's more going to sit in front of the defense. It signals to me that maybe you could do what we're considering doing with the men's team when everyone's healthy, which is to play 2-8s, right? To maybe have Loophole sit back as the dynamic box-to-box 6, or have Ingle do that job, and then maybe bring in Wright and Angie to maybe balance out that midfield a little bit. Because in most matches in this league, Chelsea will have the opportunity to score 3-4 goals in a match just with their immense amount of talent. But I think against maybe some of the harder to break down teams, your Arsenals, maybe your Manchester Uniteds or Man Cities, I think Chelsea looked a little bit defensively set up today, and I don't know at the end of the day if it would have helped to have both of those dynamic playmakers in midfield in, but that's something that I'm looking at from a balance perspective.
Well, it's interesting you kind of go back through our results for the season so far. So we've played United away already to start the season. It was 1-1 draw. Definitely what you talk about. We have this match now as another proof point. Arsenal, Chelsea 1-1 draw. We did beat them pretty handily in the FA WSL Cup 4-1. That was that match happened way more recently. We were pretty comprehensive versus Man City. We were up 3-0 and then we ended up giving away a penalty. And so that was one where we kind of just took it easy. Bristol, we beat 9-0. Birmingham really kind of put us to the challenge a little bit. That was a 1-0 victory. We smashed Everton 4-0. And so we've been scoring in bunches. There have not been many games this season. I mean, the FA Women's Cup, we lost to Everton there 2-1. But we've been, at a point averaging more than, two plus goals a game here on a pretty regular clip. And so to be held to 1, I get your concern around the midfield. But to me, it's finding the balance between our attackers. It's making sure that England, Kerr, now Harder, Cuthbert find the right type of mix so that we can start scoring with some of the regularity we saw, in the last season, where you kind of would put 6 past the team, you put 4 past the team, you put 3 past the team, you put 4 past the team. Like our average was definitely a little bit higher last season, Brandon, than it is today. And that's where we just need to kind of find the rhythm with this. Like who is the A attack going to be, and then who's the sub going to be that comes in to spell them effectively?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think we said is there's a lot of good results to show that, hey, this is a good team. They can score, no problem. I think what we're just pointing out is today we played one of the best teams in England and probably in Europe. It didn't go as well as we want to win the Champions League and we want to win trebles and quadruples and just dominate everyone. These are those days that, yeah, we came from behind and did enough to get a point, but you think about Sam Kerr's chance towards the end. You think about just the overall, the way the game went. It's like we did enough to win. Arsenal did enough to win. At the end of the day, we draw. That's fair. But how could we make this like a Man City? How could we make this like the first time we played Arsenal? How can we make this where we can still play tough teams, have less than the majority of possession, and still create chances? And I think we just said today just looked a little disjointed. The opportunities weren't as clear cut as we're used to seeing from this team. I mean, early on in September, watching this team play, the number of times that Fran Kirby got it down the right wing in space and was cutting balls across were just numerous. And so,
well, that's where Kerr's looked most effective too, right? Yeah. I mean, like we saw her and England actually link up pretty well last year, and it seemed a little bit more fluid than maybe it seemed so far. Like the goal scoring totals aside are fine. It's just, if you score 9 in one match and you score 1 in the other, like that, you want to hopefully get a more consistent average, and it just hasn't looked as smooth, and maybe that's the same problem that the men are having. It's like you add all this firepower, and then they still have to figure out how to play together. Yeah. Cuthbert's doing all the hard work on the left-hand side, trying to win the ball high upfield and create spaces, and it was clear to me that Harder didn't look as comfortable on the right as maybe Kerr does now that she's kind of back and firing. And so it's just, what do you do with England and Kerr together? Then what do you do with your now best women's player in the world, Harder? What do you do with G? What do you do with Wrighton, who provided double-digit assists last year? It's all, it's a big problem that, you not only have to keep everyone, healthy, but you have to keep them happy as well. And that's going to be Emma Hayes' kind of large challenge moving forward.
If we go back to the Man City match, you saw that attacking 3 start of Harder, Kerr, and Kirby. I think that to me was like the ideal state of where it could be, because it allows Cuthbert to kind of sit back and go into a midfield position. And then you really have a very, very dynamic left side when you think about Anderson, Cuthbert, and Harder all being able to interchange effectively, feeding Kerr kind of centrally, and then Kirby's ball, which I think Brandon kind of talked about, is just her ability to cross into the box. Absolutely something that we would have missed today, to try to kind of open up something, anything, to make it more difficult for Arsenal would have been really, really, really appreciated. And so I think there's that injury concern of Kirby being gone for a couple of weeks, so that ankle problem, that is going to make it even more difficult for Emma here to figure out exactly what that best lineup is. Because the moment she's back and healthy, something is going to get dislodged again. And, just with
Yeah.
with the way that the world is kind of going right now, there also could be, other type of, kind of instances. There could be, positive tests for COVID that potentially and hopefully don't happen. But if they do, changes the dynamics of the squad again. And so I think we benefit from it being deep, but Emma, now Brandon, it's just about finding that 11 that is the first choice. And then when the first choice isn't available, what does it need to look like to go get a result against the top team? I have no belief or no concern, rather, that when we go out against any team that is not in the top 5 right now, that we can just go out and walk it. The question is going to be is how do we, when there are injuries, when there are concerns, beat the teams in the top?